Welcome back everyone for another episode of Adventures in Mask Making. In our last episode, you've seen us move on from the masks that we had received from Turkey and decide to design our own masks using TinkerCAD. Stay tuned to this episode of Adventures in Mask Making to see us go from design to reality. We have our mask here back from the 3D printer. As you'll notice, the mask itself underneath has all of this. This is where it's bridged up from the base to the top of the mask to help it print better. I don't know a whole lot about 3D printing. I've never tried it. This whole thing has been a learning experience for me, but this is the way it comes, and then you rip. I've already ripped this piece out, rip these out, and then assemble the masks. I've already got the other two masks done. There's two large ones and one that's just a little bit smaller. And right now what we're going to do is take out all this excess material from the inside, and then we'll be ready for the final phase, which is painting the insides of the ears, putting clips on the insides of the eyes, installing our clear eye lenses, and then gluing the ears to the mask. Well, there you have it. We have successfully removed all of the excess material. Now it's time to move on to the next step. We are going to use a tack cloth to wipe off the ears really well so that not only the tape will stick, but the paint will stick in here. Try to use this to make sure we get any type of dust or dirt that may be on the plastic before we paint it. This is just going to end up in giving us a lot better of a paint job than if we weren't using it at all. To mask the ears off, we are going to use blue painter's tape. This is Scotch, and we're using the sharp lines version to try to keep any paint from bleeding through the edges. The reason why we're using this is because I'm going to have to apply a few different coats to make sure that it adheres well, and if I just use regular tape it may bleed through on the edges. So we're going to use this to try to prevent that from happening. So what I ended up doing was I used the standard blue Scotch tape, painter's tape for this ear. And then the other ear, I used this Sharp Lines tape from Scotch as well. This is supposed to be better for edges to keep you from getting bleed through and everything, but I'll show you, as you can see here, the stuff isn't even sticking to itself. So I'm going to have to end up taking some of this off and redoing it with the standard tape because it worked pretty good. But just to show you, I didn't really have much luck with this stuff, and it's a shame because this is actually more expensive than the standard. I thought it might be a little bit better, but more expensive is not always better. I guess it depends on what you're doing. But when tape won't even stick to itself, it's kind of sad. We ended up putting 4 coats of paint on the insides of the ears. So now we're going to go through and take the masking tape off of them, see how they look, see if we may need to clean up any around the edge, which is likely because of the type of paint or tape that we have, but we're going to take the masking tape off and see how everything looks. So, turned out pretty good. We've got a little bit that we need to clean up around the edges here, which I figured would happen because of the tape we're using. But no big deal. We'll clean this up and these should be good to go. So, we're almost ready to finish our mask finally. We've got everything done as far as the creation of the mask itself goes, printing. We've painted and glued our ears to the mask. We've installed the teeth. If we look inside, you can see where we used a 2-part epoxy to adhere the glue, to adhere the ears inside the mask. And then we used that same epoxy to adhere these little clips around the outside of the where the eyes will go, the lenses, and these clips will just hold the lenses in place. And the reason why we did that was so that in the future, if the lenses were to become scratched or broken, we can just pop them out and put new ones in. Keep it pretty simple. So what we have left to do on this is we want to put a piece of foam around the top and then a piece on each side. The ideal of this is to keep the keep whoever's wearing the mask's head centered in the mask, and then whenever you put the strap through these holes in the side, it'll kind of keep your head centered inside the mask and make it more comfortable to wear. The way it is, the mask is a little bit larger than your typical adult head, so that it will not hit your head and you can put the foam inside and it'll be a little bit more comfortable to wear. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to cut the foam. I'm going to cut the foam on the table saw to the size we need it, and then we're going to prepare to adhere it to the inside temporarily just to make sure that the dimensions are correct, and then we'll come up with a permanent solution as far as adhering the glue inside the mask. Okay guys, so we've cut our foam inserts that we're going to use, and we've glued one of them to this test mask that we have here. Now there's an indentation right here, and that's just from where I put a clamp on it to hold it in place. the final version's not going to be like that. The whole purpose of this was to see if we could adhere the foam to the inside of the mask correctly and get it to stay there. And what I ended up using, this foam here, it's a little bit more rigid than the foam that I was going to use originally, but I wanted a black foam to match the color of the mask, and so I bought this off of Amazon. I'll put a link to it on the description of the video, and you can check it out. But what we used was this glue right here. This is 3M high strength 90 contact adhesive. And what you do, or what I did here, was I just sanded an area off, and then I sprayed the mask itself. If you can see, there's a little bit of overspray here. I just sprayed the mask itself, then I sprayed the foam, I let it set for just a little bit, not very long, and then I pressed it in here, and I took a clamp, and that's why we have this indent. So what I'm going to do on the final version is a little different, because I don't want to make a mess or anything. What we're going to do is we're going to put our foam pieces inside where they're going to lay at. We're going to take a pencil, we're going to outline it, and then we're going to take some painter's tape and mask off all the areas that we do not want to get glue on, which is pretty much the whole inside of the mask. But we're going to put a masking tape around where our lines are going to be on the 3 different sides, and then we'll spray some adhesive inside the mask in those areas as well as the foam, and then lightly clamp it to hold it in place, leave it set probably for a day, and then come back and see how it turned out. Okay guys, so we've pretty much got this masked off to where we want it to be. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and sand down lightly the areas in here. That way that glue will get as good of a grab as it can. Then we'll blow everything off, and then I'm going to take some, if you can see, I've ran a layer of tape around here, around the top, and I'm going to get a piece of paper and run it around here on the inside, just to keep whenever I spray, just to keep from getting any more overspray than what we can help here. But first we're going to sand it down just a little bit, blow it off, and then we'll do that. Alright, so we got it sanded down. Now we're going to go through and finish masking off around the edges a little bit, just to prevent any more overspray than we can. And then we will start gluing in our foam pieces. Alright guys, so we've been letting our glue set up a little bit here. Again, we're using 3M high strength 90 contact adhesive. And with contact adhesive, you need to spray it on. It recommends on the back here to do 1 to 3 coats. I did 2 to make sure I got everything covered pretty well. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that it gets dry and tacky before you actually put the 2 pieces together. And what you can do is you can just touch it with your finger and see if it's sticking to it or not. You want to wait till it gets to the point to where it's not sticking to your finger or whatever you're trying to push on it. But I just use my finger as a guide. And what we're going to do now is we're going to get our pieces, we're going to put them in place, and then we're going to take some clamps and lightly clamp on them. I don't want to do it really hard because it will make an indentation in the foam. So we're just going to lightly clamp them in place around the edge, and we're going to leave it there overnight, and then we'll check it again tomorrow. But that should be sufficient enough to keep everything held in place and looking like we want it to. And just so you know, I've left this here for I think anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes right now, and it's to the consistency that I want it to be with 2 coats, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we got everything clamped together. Looks like kind of a mess, but it should be good. We're just going to leave this set here overnight, and then tomorrow we'll take all the clamps off, take the tape off, and see how everything's working. Alright everybody, it's been 1 day since we put all of our clamps on. We're going to remove these and then check to see how well the foam adhered to the mask. If everything looks good, then we will proceed with removing the tape and the paper from the mask. Okay, so we removed our clamps. Now let's check to see how everything looks. Looks like it's on there pretty well. Okay, good. I think everything's fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move forward with removing all the tape and the paper from the mask. Alright, so we've removed all the tape and plastic. We have our foam adhered to the inside of the mask. Everything looks good. Now we're going to proceed to installing the eye lenses and finishing up everything by putting in the band that holds this to our head.